Hi, this is Sarah Bracey White. I am a writer, I am a poet, but don't encourage this.
From just outside the world-famous Miami University campus, in the heart of the fabled scenic beauty of Oxford, Ohio, just outside the city of Cincinnati, you're listening to Don't Encourage This, a series of interviews and conversations with artists, creatives, storytellers, and interfaith voices on the craft of meaning-making. I'm your host, Mark Von Bullock. I'm a minister in the Presbyterian Church USA. Shout out to music producer Tom G, who did a nice little remix on the show's theme song there. It's kind of chill and laid back, but it's kind of cool. I like it. Yes, sir, I like it. I am beyond thrilled to welcome as my guest this episode, author Sarah Bracey White. Sarah is the critically acclaimed author of the book Primary Lessons, a memoir, which was released by Carey Press in 2013. Sarah hails from my hometown of Sumter, South Carolina, and she writes about her experience growing up as a woman of color during the Jim Crow South. Her book, Primary Lessons, is set against this backdrop, but the story focuses on her complex emotional journey navigating her relationship with her mother. It is a powerful and challenging story of how complicated family systems intersect with other issues like social justice, and Sarah is a powerful storyteller. Sarah is also the author of The Wanderlust, a South Carolina folktale. Both of Sarah's books have been adapted for the stage. You can learn more about these and all of Sarah's projects at www.onmymind.org. Her latest book, A Walk Down Memory Lane, Short Stories for Seniors to Spark Joy and Stay Sharp, will be available this fall in multiple formats from Penguin Random House. The physical book will be available wherever books are sold on December 2nd, 2025, just in time for Christmas. And the ebook version will be available a little bit earlier on November 18th. Sarah joins us over Zoom to share with us how the creative process for each of these projects came to life in surprising, transformational, and even ways that can be healing. She's been a dear friend of mine for many, many years. I've wanted to have her on the show for a long time. I'm thrilled to get to sit down and talk with her over Zoom in this way about her unique creative journey. I think you'll really enjoy this one. Let's talk to Sarah Bracey White. Sarah, I have been very eager to have you on this program because you and I have a little something in common. We were both born and grew up in Sumter, South Carolina, and you grew up in Sumter during the Jim Crow segregation era. You've written about those growing up years in a very powerful book, which was entitled Primary Lessons, a memoir, which was published by Carey Press in 2013. Is that right?
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you about the genesis of that book, because my understanding is that that project did not begin because you necessarily wanted to become an author. That project began for more personal reasons. Is that right?
The story behind that is I've been a writer since I was about 12 years old. I wrote fiction because I came from the South where at birth it was imprinted on you. You did not tell family business.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And I grew up and wrote a lot of nonfiction about journalistic things, not about family and my personal life. And I didn't marry till I was 44, and my husband kept saying to me, "You write about everybody, but you don't write about your mother. You know she loved you." And my answer shocked me because I must have been over 50 at that point. And I said, well, I gave him a number of reasons why my mother did like me. He said, well, give me some reasons why. He said, because those are not legitimate reasons for you to think that. And every day for a week, he would ask me something that my mother did for me that was a sign of love. And I realized that at my adult age, I was holding on to a promise I made myself when I was 5 years old. The promise was that I was not going to love that pretty smiling lady who was my mother, who everybody thought was so nice. The reason behind it was I lived with my mother's oldest sister in Philadelphia for the first 5 years of my life for a series of complicated reasons. My mother was a school teacher. My father was a school teacher, but my father was blacklisted from teaching when he was involved with an NAACP campaign to get equal pay for Black teachers. So he didn't have a job and she needed to work, and all of her family had migrated north. And she was not quite happy with my father's family, so she wasn't letting them take care of her baby. So the older girls, my mother's first children, the three older ones, were old enough to be in school. I was a baby 9 months old. So my mother sent me to her childless older sister and her husband in Philadelphia, where I was an only child in a middle-class family, where my aunt made me believe that the sun rose when I got up in the morning. She loved me dearly, and I loved her. So I was angry when my mother said, "You're 5 years old, I'm taking you home." And I said, "I don't want to go." So all the way home on the train, I kept thinking, I'm not going to love that lady just because she smiles and people think she's nice and that.
Right.
And it's funny that I went back to live with my mother until in between 5 and 17. So for 12 years, I lived with my mother, and I was a dutiful child, but my mother was trying to teach me to be a Southern child accepting of segregation. And after having grown up for 5 years free, I was very, very distressed by the circumstances of our life,
Sure.
because not only was I locked in Jim Crow segregation outside, I was in a single parent family. My mother, the school teacher, made far less money than my aunt, who ran a laundry at home in her basement of her row house. So we were poor in addition to Jim Crow. So I had always felt that if she'd left me with my aunt, my life would have been better.
Sure. Sure.
But after my husband prodded me, I decided to write down to make sense of why I was feeling the way I did about my dead mother. So for years, I made notes and would write honest stories, not made up like I used to do for fiction. And after a while, the writing group that I belonged to, I began to take those pieces there. And they kept saying, "Oh, well, you're not quite being honest there. You're hiding your feelings." So I kept writing. I just kept writing. I had no intention to ever publish this.
Sure.
What happened is one of the members of my writing group, who prompted me to submit it to Cabin Carry Press, which was having an over the transom submission, which means a submission without an agent. And because my friend would have hassled me constantly had I not sent it in, I paid the $20 application fee, kissed my $20 goodbye, figured I'd never get it back or hear from them, and mailed it in.
Sure.
And by this time, I think, 4 months passed. The contest closed. I figured I really didn't think about it, because I didn't think the book was a book worthy of publication. It was a book that was kind of revelatory about my emotional journey with my mother.
Sure.
When they called me and asked to speak to Sarah Bracey White, I am the executive manager of Cabin Carry Press. I said, "This is Sarah." She said, "I'm calling to tell you we have selected your memoir as the best of our submissions." And I said, "What book did I submit to you?" And she laughed. She said, "That's not usually the response we get when we call to tell a writer that we're going to publish their work." She said, "It's your memoir, Primary Lessons." And I said, "You want to publish it?" And she said, "Oh, yes. We're going to give you an editor to do some expanding on certain things we'd like to see more of, but yes." And we figured it'll be 2 years before it comes out. And I laughed and said, "If I'm still alive."
Oh, Sarah.
Because in my family, people die young. My mother, my father, my sister, my younger brother, and I was like, I live every day like this could be our last. I thought, I'll see if I can hang on until I'm old enough to the 2 years pass. But the editor they gave me was the least likely person I would have expected to understand my story and the whole circle, but he got me.
Mm.
He read exactly what I was doing, and he did a whole line by line, chapter by chapter, where he said, okay, I can see here where it was so painful you stopped writing and changed the subject, which is what you do throughout your book.
Wow.
And I said, oh, okay.
So he
And
really tuned in to what was going on.
he really did. He was the person who forced me to write a foreword. I said, who writes a foreword in a memoir? He said, your story is set within a specific time period in America that everybody who will read your book does not know. So I wrote the foreword to the book, which was an explanation of the time period that I was living in.
Yeah.
And my mother and father and their problems with it, and why I was back and forth in Philadelphia. It surprised me that anybody other than family, friends, and a few people I know and work with wanted to buy the book. The publisher had to go into a second printing. She kept saying, you keep this book alive. And it just surprises me because I never thought anybody who wasn't Black would read the book.
And the book has a quite diverse readership.
It shocks me the letters I get when I go to Amazon and read the comments people make. They are not people I know, and they are not Black people I know, or I know people who are not Black who have written to me personally to discuss circumstances, things like, I grew up in the same period you grew up in, but my parents were not about integration. As kids, we couldn't tell our parents what they should believe and what we were going to do in the circumstances. It actually opened my eyes.
Yeah.
I thought all white people hated Black people.
Sure.
That was what segregation teaches you.
Absolutely.
Because the circumstances, according to what I learned in school, civics lessons, what I had seen in person, what had happened to my father, the destruction of my family, I thought that.
It doesn't surprise me that your story has a wide range of readers because, number one, it does open up for the reader what the experience is like growing up in the South during that time. But I think what your story in particular also does is it explores the complex relationship and the messy relationship that we have with generational systems in our families. Your relationship with your mother is complicated and painful, and one that you've continued to explore and even reframe as you get older. And I think that's something that many of us go through. Many of us, we think that we know everything when we're younger, and then as we get older, we start to think about the past from a different perspective. And it I don't know that it always necessarily heals our wounds completely, but it gives us a new perspective. And I think your book gives the reader permission to talk about that kind of stuff. And you're right. Growing up in the South, we don't always talk about that stuff, but you do in your story. And I think there's real power in that.
Well, for me, I was not writing a book about segregation.
Sure.
And the effects of it and whatever. I was writing what was happening within my family. Segregation was one component, but so much else went on that I was trying to get out of my system. See, when you begin to write a story about your life, you go into detail about things that you never thought you remembered or wanted to talk about. And I actually had to go deep into things. I realized that I was angry with my mother late in life. I thought I was angry with my baby brother who was born after I came home. I just didn't like him. No, it was misplaced. I couldn't be angry with my mother.
Mm.
In the book, I went from being angry with my mother to being very protective of my mother, to loving my mother.
Wow.
That book taught me what my mother had sacrificed to live her life. Because as I began to talk to people, they would tell me things. I learned things about my mother as I wrote this book that I had no idea about.
Isn't that amazing?
My mother played the violin. I had no idea my mother played the violin. I knew everybody else in the family besides me played the piano. We had a piano in the house despite our poverty. But I didn't know that she had lived in Philadelphia. I did not know that my mother's mother died when she was 15. She was a motherless daughter,
Wow.
which has its effect. When you begin to read books by people about motherless daughters, you begin to realize that we're not prepared in the same way that people who have relationships with mothers. My mother never beat me. My mother never abused me. My mother never talked about what I couldn't do and who I wouldn't be. All those things that ruin a child, my mother didn't do them.
Yeah.
She just didn't do what I wanted her to do.
Sure. Which is how many young people probably feel about their parents at some point.
Exactly. And what happens is, had my mother lived, two different things would have happened in my life. One, I would have come to understand more about her. But I was 17. I never asked my mother anything about herself, never needed to know. This thing that we have as children is we think we know everything.
Mm-hmm.
You get to a point where you suddenly don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you go back to the parent.
Yeah.
And if the parent is open to being an adult, see, either we deify or we objectify parents.
Yeah.
They're human beings. It's why I say to people today, your parents did not wake up in the morning and decide that they were going to do things that would ruin your life.
No, certainly not. But when you're a teenager, your whole world feels like they're only
But
here
it
to
feels like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you, to segue back for a minute, when you said appealing to diverse audiences, my book was the school-wide read for a Catholic girls' school in New York. And they brought me there for a one day where I did workshops and I talked to groups and all. And the thing that surprised me beyond belief was the number of white girls who told me after reading my book, they understood more about their mothers.
Oh, wow.
So I had tapped into something that was bigger than I am.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have learned a lot from it, which has allowed me to grow as a person, not to still be a stunted young woman who still resents what her mother kept her from doing. I think now my mother saved me from a whole lot of problems growing up.
Oh, but what a powerful journey to go through. What resonates with me, Sarah, it was when you said it was the act of writing and telling the story that cracked this open for you. That is so powerful. That, this wasn't just Sarah Bracey White sitting around and thinking about the stuff. It's the act of telling the story and putting it together. There's something about that opens this all up. That's so powerful and so healing almost, it sounds like.
There were times when I had to limit the amount of writing that I could do. It would be so serious that I just couldn't continue. It was like it was just too deep and I would take a break. Maybe an hour, maybe a day,
Sure.
maybe a few days before I could go back and begin to explore it. And the thing that surprised me during all this writing is whenever I asked anybody something for confirmation about a fact or a situation, I was always right. I knew things that I didn't know I knew, and the writing pulled it out from me. So I said I was writing for myself.
Yes.
So I was willing to explore. I've always been introspective. So I've always been willing to explore it, but I had never tapped into the desire to explore this feeling about my mother. She died, we buried her, I went on with my life.
Right, right.
I needed to go back and find out all the depth of things that I was feeling and that she must have been feeling. At one point, when I was writing fiction, I wrote a scene in a book that's never been published where my aunt comes to Sumter to get me. So I'm a 9-month-old baby, still breastfeeding. Fiction takes you
Yeah,
to.
sure.
So I've set this up and I'm like, so what happens when she takes me?
Yeah.
My aunt gets in the taxi cab from our house to the train station. My mother does not go with her to the train. My mother gives her the baby. And my mother is standing there on the sidewalk. Well, not sidewalk, but on the grass from the street because we didn't have sidewalks. And the baby begins to cry. And my mother closes the taxi door, steps back, and they drive away. And the front of my mother's blouse gets wet because she's nursing.
Wow.
And the emotional thing has, the baby cries, the milk comes out. Now, I've never had a baby. I can't tell you anything about that. I can tell you there's no way I know that happened.
Sure.
But what that made me feel was the pain my mother must have been suffering to give me, quote, give me away.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, boy.
So again, it's the writing of this stuff that alters your perspective. We are very narrow focused on what we feel. When you write about another character, you've got to figure out what they feel.
That's
So
right.
for me, my mother became a character that I was writing about, but I was writing the truth about that character as I remembered it.
And the emotion behind, I mean, that image, Sarah, is so just devastating. And whether it actually happened or not, it's almost not important. The emotional symbolism in that scene is powerful in that you're conveying this had to have been hard for your parent to do, for any parent to do. And that's almost assuredly true. And this is the artist's way of helping the reader feel and understand that in a way that really only storytelling can accomplish.
Storytelling is this wonderful thing for me. I call it, I get to lie without consequences on the page. I love to tell stories, and people say to me, it's why I'm such a fan of Facebook. When used properly, it gives me an audience for the stories of my life that happen. And my life is filled with stories, I guess, because I create stories out of circumstances. And life gives you great circumstances for stories if you're open to them.
Absolutely. Well, Sarah, this particular story, your story, has been told in a number of different ways. And I just want our listeners to know your book, Primary Lessons, was adapted into a play by the Daisy Joplin Music Mentorship Foundation. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And this production was described as an immersive, dramatic musical. And you were in this production. You performed in the starring role. You portrayed your own life in this story. I really wanted to ask you about that project. How did this happen? How did the book evolve into the theater context?
Well, I tell people that life is never a straight line for any artist. It goes sideways and zigzag and backtracks. That story has a backstory, as you probably know. After Primary Lessons came out, I was working on the next book, and I said, I don't want to wait 5 years, 10 years before I publish another book. And a story came to me, which was fully fictional. And it was a story called The Wanderlust. It was a story about a man who drank and wandered. Oh, you got a copy.
I've got a copy of it right here.
Well, I wrote that story, and I tell people, I don't normally write stories where I know the beginning, the middle, and the end. I kind of create these characters and things happen and give them a setting. That story came to me whole cloth.
The Wanderlust,
It was like somebody channeled it through me. And my sister, who read it, said, oh, that's Daddy's story. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And the two girls who play the lead roles in that are my two older sisters.
Oh, that's great.
They just laughed, identifying themselves. And I'm like, No, that's not. I have no family. I'm like, oh yeah, all right. So I finally agreed that yeah, that's it. It's just been funny for me how writing takes from life and gives you a totally fictionalized version. It never happened. But when I was marketing primary lessons, I found a site called You Might Be From Sumter If You Remember.
Oh, yes. This is a Facebook group. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, when I was thinking about The Wanderlust, I submitted it to a contest and won the contest. And the judges told me I could not perform it at the opening of the event celebration because it probably would be hard to read.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because I wrote it in a modified Southern dialect, the
Yes.
way Southerners talk. So I revised it to the King's English, and a woman's group in Mississippi published it on their website. But I was always fond of the original.
Yeah.
So I serialized it and asked questions of the people who read on the Facebook, You Might Be From Sumter, if the language worked. People wrote me notes back like, that's the way I talk when I'm not trying to impress Northerners.
Good. I want to jump in here really quick because I want to make sure that our listeners understand this book because I love The Wanderlust so much, Sarah. And you and I have talked about this before. My mom gave me that. I'm holding a copy of it in my hand here. This edition, this is a first edition, dated 2015 as the publication date. This also has your signature in it, which I was very, very happy
I'm flattered.
It's called The Wanderlust, a South Carolina Folktale. And as you read this iteration of the story, that's exactly what it is. It's a somewhat how do I want to describe it? It's a folktale with perhaps some vaguely supernatural elements to it. And it is written in a very South Carolina dialect. I loved it. I mean, this reminded me of some of the plays we might have done at the Sumter Little Theater in the youth theater program there. When you say that this story came to you and then you realize later, oh no, this was a story that your daddy told. Well, to me, isn't that exactly what folk tales are? They're stories that
no, it wasn't a story my father told.
Okay.
Because I spent no time with my father. So my father never told me anything.
Oh, wow. Oh, wild.
So this story, when I say it's like, this will not make sense to a lot of people. If you stand barefoot on the soil, there is a connection that you feel. And it's almost like this story came up through the soil into my feet, into my head. And I had the whole outline and I just had to sit down and figure out how to make it make sense to happen because it's the story. So your listeners will get an idea.
Okay.
It's the story of a man who from the time he was a little boy loved to wander the roads of South Carolina.
Yes.
He grows up, comes back and forth to visit his mother still, and he falls in love with the preacher's daughter and marries her. And for a while, he stays home and works, and they have 2 children. Then he begins to wander. He leaves home, comes back, they have another. He leaves home and comes back, they have another. Now, that's the story of my mother's 5 children.
Yeah, sure.
Come back and would have. So that was carried out in the story. But in the story, the way he handles his desire to wander because his little girls love him and beg him to stay home, he begins to drink to calm the wanderlust.
Yeah.
When the kids at school begin to tease the 2 daughters, the older 2, about their father who's a drunk, they ask the mother why he drinks. And she says, well, why he wanders. And the mother says, he drinks to calm the wanderlust. So they want to know what the wanderlust is. And she tells them it's a spell put on people to make them run away from the folks who love them.
Yeah.
So the girls say, well, why don't we go see the root doctor and get a cure? And the mother is adamant about how the root doctor's in cahoots with the devil. She doesn't want to have anything to do with them, and she doesn't want the girls to have anything to do with them. So the girls surreptitiously go to visit the root doctor
Yes.
in Green Swamp. Now, Green Swamp is a real place that I had never been in. I was forbidden to go into Green Swamp, but it was always a big deal in my mind. So the two girls go looking. They've asked somebody where the root doctor lives, and they say she's in Green Swamp. You go down the road in this. So they go, and they find her. She agrees to make a magic potion that if their daddy drinks it, he will be cured of the wanderlust and he won't have to drink anymore.
Yes. Yes.
They're required to come back after she makes it. And the day that they come back, it is a stormy day. The older sister is afraid and doesn't want to go back, but the younger one, who looks just like her daddy, is insistent that she has made the potion because they gave her the money. And the girl said, you made what is it? You're trusting a woman who's in cahoots with the devil to keep her word? So they're arguing back and forth about going to see this. So the story goes on, and she has made the thing, but they get there and it rains. And in Green Swamp, the road into the swamp becomes impassable. So they end up having to spend the night, and they are frightened to death of this woman who they think is in cahoots with the devil.
Right.
But they find out she is simply an herbalist.
Yes.
Who has learned all the wonders of the plants in the swamp. And that's what she does. So the story goes on. So anyway, I serialized this. So after the first few days, people came on and said, well, today is Friday. You're going to do us like they do with the soap operas. We got to wait till Monday to find out.
We want to know what happens.
Can we just buy the book? And I said, it's not a book. It was simply a file in my computer. So people said, we'll buy copies.
Yeah.
So I self-published. I got my friend to do somebody said, you need illustrations. So I had my friend do illustrations. She kept saying, I've never done this before. I just do doodling on the back of my letters.
This is Linda Simone who did the illustrations?
Linda Simone,
yeah.
yes.
They're beautiful
and
illustrations.
Said, and I've never drawn Black people. I can't. I said, Linda, you'll be all right. Just bake the picture. And I had no idea that she was so engrossed in the story that she did several versions of every picture that she sent. And one of those pictures in there is my grandmother's picture.
Oh, really? Which picture is it?
I sent Linda the one of the old lady with the cross around her neck.
Oh, I want to see if I can find this. I didn't know that when
the root doctor.
Yes. Is it this character right here? Is that her?
Yes.
Our listeners can't see this, but they're just going to have to buy the book.
It's a picture of my grandmother. And I had to modify the story because in my story, I had mentioned that she was wearing a cross. But Linda's a good Catholic girl, so she put a cross on her. And what I did was, in the story, I wrote that Waltina, who's the one who forced this trip, says we don't need to be scared of her because she got a cross around her neck.
Ah.
So this is where the illustrator and the writer worked together to create something.
I love it.
So anyway, after I finished it, sold the book to all these people, I had to go to a second edition. People paid me before I issued the book so I could have the money to print it so they could get it by Christmas.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's a good sign.
I'm telling you. So I finished that book and we got it out. My husband and I mailed them all these places. And somebody on that, might be from Sumter, said, I really wish there was an audio book because my grandmother would love this story, but she can't read anymore. Could you do an audio book? My husband's son in California, my husband is my greatest backer. He's always trying to find solutions to any problem I come up with. So he asked his son, who's a musician in California, did he know a sound person who could come to the house and set up a story?
Sure.
So the guy set up the whole kit and caboodle, and we recorded the story. I thought the guy was a tech guy. I had no idea he was a musician, studio musician who played with the Daisy Joplin band.
Mm.
I found out when he said to me, "I've given your name to Daisy because she's looking for material for an immersive show at the Paramount Theater that we're doing, a thematic kind of thing."
Yeah.
And I told her, "Your Wanderlust would be a great story." I said, "Sure, I own the rights to it." I asked the woman who did the illustration. She gave them the rights. It was their fundraiser.
I had the same thought when I first read this. I thought, oh, this would be a great play. This would be great on the stage.
She wanted to do it. I turned it into a play, just so you'll know. It hasn't been performed, but it's been through the lab at my theater in Westchester.
And it was published in the spring 2023 issue of the Westchester Review. Is that right?
Yes. Oh, you've done your homework.
As a stage play entitled Green Swamp Adventure. That's what my
Yes.
dossier of research says.
Okay, yes. And that was fun, but after it came out, Daisy Joplin called me and asked for a copy of it to send because she had done an album of the Who's work, the musicians.
Wow. Holy moly.
And she had a contact with them, and she called the contact and said, "I want to do an immersive experience where we light up the theater and we do all these things, but I don't know how to do it. Do you know somebody?" And they said, "Oh, yeah, we'll hook you up with the guy who does our stuff, the best guy in Hollywood,
Cool.
Daniel Flannery." I hear this secondhand. So she asked me to send him copies of the book. She thought he was just going to talk to her on the phone. He said, "Well, it's COVID, and I'm not on assignment because I can't travel into all the places that I usually do my work." I looked him up. The man did an opening sequence for the Olympics. He is big time.
Oh.
And it was so funny to me that this was just a little book that I kind of threw together. So send it to him. He calls Daisy Joplin back 2 weeks later. "That's not the story you want to tell on stage." I looked up on Amazon, her name on Amazon. She had done a book called Primary Lessons that I bought and read, and my wife read, and that's the story you need to tell. I will write the script.
Wow. Incredible.
It's not a usual kind of thing. So I'm like, okay, we jointly registered the script because it's based on my book, and he lifted the line straight from the book.
Oh, good.
And he chose the theme from Primary Lessons. He didn't do Wanderlust. He did Primary Lessons. Daisy agreed. They got the whole thing going. And what he did was he had designed it for 4 actors. But they had all those preliminary things. Mind you, this is supposed to be a fundraiser. So she's got to pay him something.
Yeah, sure.
She's got to do all these other things. And finally it got down to it. She said, "We can't afford to hire 4 actors and pay them." She said, "But Daniel said, you had read the script and your phrasing and understanding is just fine. And I said, "I can't remember the lines." And Daniel said, "Don't worry, we'll put her on stage with the script in hand."
Ah, okay.
So they dressed me up we had 2 rehearsals,
Okay.
2 full stage rehearsals. Who ever heard of that?
That's all. It's a real quick.
A 5-piece band. They had a gospel choir. They had 2 blues singers. They had a violinist. They had something. It was so many people. All I had to do was remember to read my lines and not fall off the stage.
Oh, Sarah.
Because the reason that when I walked into the theater for the first rehearsal, they had a rear projection cameras on both sides of the stage. Stage height,
Yes.
6 feet wide. And my mother's picture was projected on those 2 screens the first day I walked into the theater.
Oh, my goodness. I can't even imagine what that must have felt like for you.
I was like, oh my God, I had never seen my mother that big.
Yeah.
And I said, I guess this is my welcome to the theater. Then they put me in a $20,000 borrowed gown because Daniel Flannery was directing over Zoom with an in-person assistant director, and he had set out what we were supposed to wear. He said, "Oh, you have to be glamorous." And I'm like, okay. The reason I worried about not falling on stage was because I have arthritis. I don't wear high heel shoes a lot.
Sure.
And the gown was 5 inches too long. So they simply pinned it up because they couldn't cut it off.
Oh.
Big, wide, wonderful, reddish. Oh, it was just marvelous. And they got jewelry. One of my neighbors, who's a jeweler in Manhattan, gave me sparkly jewels to wear. So I'm on stage in
Incredible.
high heel shoes to lift it up, worried about entering and exiting across the wires that are feeding all the sound and light and all the equipment on this big, full theater.
And people who've never done theater before, they got to understand. I mean, this is a legitimate concern because when you're on stage in front of an audience, the theater is often very dark, except for the big bright light shining right in your face. You can't always see what's around you, and the edge of the stage that drops off is there somewhere. And you do have to be careful not to, even if you don't have arthritis, you got to be careful not to fall off the stage. It's a legit.
And they even had one scene where I'm dancing at my cotillion. And I told them there is no way I can dance on stage. So they made they modified an adjustment. They had the gown that I was worn, and I danced around with the gown in
Wow.
a slight movement rather than because the music that they were doing was fast waltz.
Okay.
I said, they said, "Oh no, we memorized the waltz. We can't change the waltz." I said, "Well, then I will just sway
Yeah, there
on
you
stage
go.
with it." But it was an exciting thing, and we did 2 shows just as COVID lifted limitations on the theater. So there were 300 people in the first one, about 400 in the second. But it was heady. It was wonderful. I missed my marks for the lighting on a couple of places. When I saw the video, I was like, "Oh," they were like, "Don't worry." And it was funny because just before I went on, the assistant director said, "I hope you're not too nervous." And I said, "No, I'm not nervous at all." And he said, "You really aren't?" I said, "No." He said, "Give me your hand." So I shook his hand. He said, "You really aren't shaking and nervous. Why?" I said, "God brought me to this point. He would
Mm.
not abandon me tonight on stage." So as long as I've got the lines down here,
Yeah.
I know where I'm supposed to be. And you've got a big stage, so they're moving you around to places, and you've got raised blocks with a desk where I do letter writing back and forth to my pen pal, and different people play different roles. And
Yeah.
it was absolutely wonderful. They wanted to take the show on the road with me. I told them there is no way I can manage going on the road.
You're a smart woman,
I said,
Sarah.
"You waited too late." And they laughed, and they said they would have to raise money to take the show with 4 people.
Okay.
So they took somebody when I was 5, somebody when I was 12, somebody when I was 17, and somebody when I am the adult in college where the thing ends. They said he just wasn't able to do it. So the most striking thing out of all of that is the Hollywood director said to me, "This should be a Netflix series." I laughed and said, "Do I look like I know anybody at Netflix?" And he said, "Well, I'll see if I can find some contact." We were never able to find contact.
Oh, that would have been so good. That would have been
He
so
said,
good.
"Not a movie because they will alter the movie." He said, "The book
Yeah.
needs to be shown exactly
Yeah.
like you told it."
And if they did it as a series, they could have much better fidelity to the text, I
Yes,
think.
yes.
Yeah.
But that's always been I call that's my background story that makes me happy whenever I think about it, because when you get people like him, when he first said that, mind you, I'm meeting him over Zoom and he's saying this and I'm looking going, "Yeah, I'm not trusting anybody from Hollywood."
But how amazing. So, I mean, this started off, I mean, this is what I want people to understand. And you mentioned it earlier. This did not come from a place of you wanting all of this stuff to happen. This was just something that you started writing because you needed, for your own sake, this emotional journey about your relationship with your mother, and for this story to take off and have this life beyond, so far beyond, I mean, to become an acclaimed book, and then this immersive stage show with this complex production, and almost even a Netflix series, for God's sake. That is so extraordinary for a story like this.
It's why I say it's not my story, it's my testimony. It's God. I'm just the piece of clay that he's using to get these things out there, because I realized that my story was healing for a lot of people. Some of the letters that I've gotten from people who've asked me questions about it, I realized that they needed somebody to talk to about feelings that they have held hostage for years and years.
Well, it's a powerful message, Sarah, because I think what your story has done I think it has given a lot of people who probably had upbringings like ours where we were taught not to talk about this stuff. Your story gives people permission to unpack the stories in their own lives that may have gone untold, or the emotions that we've carried that are complicated or messy or not polished or simple. And you've given people permission to not only experience your story, but to maybe even rethink some of our own stories too. And I think there's real power in that. This coming December 2025, you have a book being released just in time for Christmas.
Yes.
It's called A Walk Down Memory Lane, Short Stories for Seniors to Spark Joy and Stay Sharp. The ebook version will be out a little bit early in November. Is that right?
Yes, on the 18th.
And this project has been described as a collection of 50 nostalgic short stories aimed at older adults and their caregivers, with each story followed by some reflective questions. Sarah, I was very interested in this. As a pastor, this is a topic that is of great interest to me, and I suspect that this is an area of relevance for a lot of your readers. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about, how did this get going?
I did not conceive this project. This project was conceived by the team at Penguin Random House. The research on this subject is that a lot of early, they don't want to call it dementia. Everybody says, I can't find my keys. What did I walk in this room to get? There are certain things that happen as we get older that we can counteract. Yes, it's diet. Yes, it's eating your fruits and vegetables. Yes, it's getting exercise. Yes, it's socializing. But several studies done in Canada as well as in the US have determined that if people read short stories set within the period early 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and ask themselves questions about the stories as related to their lives, it makes them increase connective tissue, neuroplasticity is the word for it, that we can learn new things. And I have to tell you that we stopped trying to remember at a certain point because it gets difficult.
Sure.
And it's like, well, I don't even remember his name, or I'll, because our desktops are overloaded with information. But what they find is, if we go back to the period and something entertains us, the brain is following along with it, but the brain is making connections with what we remember. For example, the story, they gave me a list of stories. Now, let me backtrack first. I got this assignment from Penguin Random House, because I run a writing program for children that's 30 years old, and the children are between 9 and 18. They meet in a round table, just like my writing group that got me to write my memoir and publish it. Those kids meet with a writer teacher in a round table setting where they get prompts, they write in class, they bring in work from home. It is designed for children who love to write. I designed it in a way that I would have benefited from. I started it because one of my neighbors, 9-year-old daughter, rang our doorbell and said, "Mommy says you're a writer. Can you get my stories published?" And I started looking. So if I could get stories published, I'd be getting my own published. This was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I designed a program. I had taught writing in a college, but never to children. I never wanted to be a teacher. I knew the tenuous employment level for teaching
Oh,
because
yeah.
my mother and my father had suffered with it. But I went on and put together a program, and I taught the first few classes in a local library and had so many children register that we expanded to 4 or 5 classes. During COVID, we had classes over Zoom that I taught my teachers how to conduct the same classes. And those classes brought me children who would come in when they were 9, stay till they went to college, and would come back to visit, or their parents would see me in the street and tell me how valuable the program was. So, after, let's see, the mother, I have a day job. I still work full time. I'm a consultant, so I hang art in public spaces, and I was hanging art in a senior center. And a woman walked in who was the mother of one of my graduates.
Oh, wow.
She said, "Oh, it's good to see you." She said, "Let's take a selfie. Diana will be so happy that I saw you and I can prove it." So we took the selfie and I said, "Here's my business card. Please email me a copy of the picture." I said, "I don't have a phone. I don't have an iPhone Apple that I can tap on your phone
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
can
yeah.
transfer." So she laughed and said, "I'll send you the picture." A week later, she sends me an email and says, "I don't tell people this because they'd all want my help, but I work for Penguin Random House.
Oh,
And
wow.
we are looking for an inspirational, creative writer who can produce a book for us." And I sent the editor gave her your business card and sent her to look at your website and what you have online, and they're going to call you about doing the job as a work for hire, which is they give me the guidelines and heck. And I'm like, what? At the time that this email comes in, I am producing one of my plays for a local theater. The director's mother had a heart attack and she can't direct. So I'm directing and creating scenery and
Oh,
music,
my
all these other
goodness.
things. And I almost said to the woman, "I can't do it. I just can't squeeze it in." They've advertised my play. I've got actors.
Can I just say, this is such a flex, by the way. I know you don't intend it this, but to say, hold on, let me pause this rehearsal of my play I'm creating. I need to take this call from the publisher that wants me to write it. I mean, that is so cool, Sarah. That's one of the coolest things anyone has said. I know you
But
didn't mean it that way.
I didn't see it like that. I saw it as I can only do so much work.
I know you did, but that is so cool. That's so
Well,
cool.
I told the editor from the publishing house, "Well, let me see if I can work this out." And I actually hung up the phone and said, "I'll get back to you." And I'm laughing, saying, "Oh my God." My husband said, "You do not turn down a publisher like Penguin Random House that offers you a laid out job with an outline of the sections and the topics that they wanted me to cover."
Because they don't do that. Big publishers like that, they do. I mean, that's just not done unless they're really serious. I mean, you've got to be really, really good for them to even consider doing that. I mean, people.
Well, the editor contacted me and said, "We've been to your website, and your website shows us that you're capable of doing it." Now, 3 years ago, I paid a lot of money to have my website redesigned. It's worth every penny
Yeah, it is now.
I
Yeah.
paid because it impressed them so much, because I included material. I linked to material,
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
visual, audio, and you don't realize. See, I don't realize when I'm doing things that everything I do is a step toward the next thing that's going to confront me. It's why I think that my life is very blessed. A lot of this is not stuff. Somebody said, "You must be living your life dream." I go, "Honey, I never dreamed about any of these. All I dreamed about was central air conditioning, a dishwasher, and central heat. Those are the things I asked God for." I don't ask for the rest of them, but I tell them I don't play the lottery because I'm saving my good fortune for my writing career. And my good fortune has really blossomed because when they went through in writing this book, I had to write about things that I knew nothing about. I never watched the TV show MASH. But by the time I got to the 40th and 50th topic, I had realized that I didn't need to experience it as a fiction writer. I had to create a scenario that worked in 350 words. And I got good at it.
Yeah.
This book is really the culmination. The reason that I've been trying to talk about it to people and spread it is because it's a fun book, but it's a book that will benefit you. My husband has hydrocephalus and he has problems with memory. He was my test for every story. Hot off the press, I go, okay, listen to this one. If he laughed or if he cried.
Yeah.
Or if he said, nah, that doesn't do anything for me, I take it back and rewrite it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
So it became a means of connecting regularly with him and making him make cognitive associations about things.
Well, Sarah, I know that you've described your career as good fortune, but I think truly it's been a good fortune for all of us. I mean, your stories are so rich and they have given your readers such a gift. We appreciate you sharing your stories with us it's a gift to all of us.
Well, I just want to make sure that anyone who's interested in doing a follow-up of seeing some of these things, if they go to my website, which is onmymind.org, you can click on it, and the 3 little lines up at the top will take you to the various essays that I've been able to include because I write essays, and they are short stories. And I belong to a performance group where we perform these stories. So I'm the Southern connection for the New York writers read.
And you know that onmymind.org is going to be a good website to visit because you can just ask the people at Penguin Random House and they'll tell you. It's pretty good.
But I really want people because so many people are dealing with cognitive decline.
Yes, yes.
And they don't, you don't want to take pills. You don't want to do all these things. You play crossword puzzle, you do Sudoku. But there's something about the joy of a story that reminds you of something. And the topics that they gave me, like fishing and first love and first jobs and apartments and all those things, I even had to write one about drive-in movies.
Okay. Okay.
So the book is done in large print. The book is a kind of thing that makes it easier to access it. So you can read it, but if you're a caregiver to someone who has dementia, you're trying to make a connection with them.
Yeah.
Just they talk about songs on the radio, the person will sing along with you.
Oh, that's so good. If
you make it a point of reading that story, choose a story that fits into something they were interested in.
Yeah.
You allow them to start telling you things that you probably didn't even know. And the other part is the sense of community. This is something you can do communally.
Absolutely.
There's senior programs, you play bingo. Hey, why not have one where you read stories to each other? And afterwards, talk about what those stories reminded you of your life or your relationships with people. That's why I'm doing it. I was so taken by the concept. If you think about it, they tell people to read to their little children.
Yeah.
It helps brains. So here we are at the other end of the scale. Reading is still important. And I tried to make the stories interesting.
This is something that we all care about very deeply, or we know, or it's something that touches either us or somebody that we know, and it's creatively engaging. I mean, it's powerful for anybody to connect to stories of your first love, or many of us have stories at the drive-in movie that we can remember and connect with. And what a wonderful way to reconnect with our own stories, but also it's good for us and the people that we love too.
I hope that it inspires people to write some of their own stories.
Oh, so good.
Because everybody has stories. One of my friends who was an early reader said, I'm 72, but I guess I'm old enough because I really enjoy reading these stories. And I wanted to say, okay, so I know you're a painter, but are you going to write some of these stories down? I am a proponent of encouraging people to write down stories because someday somebody in your family will be asking for those stories and you won't be around to tell them anymore. And they'll go, I can't remember, but she used to tell us a story about the turkey that she cooked and how it didn't. And I'm like, have you written it down? People tend to think that in order to be a writer, you have to be gifted by God.
Oh, you just have to write.
To be a writer, you simply have to write something the same way you would tell it to somebody you're sitting before. You don't have to make it fancy. You don't have to dress it up. You just have to tell us who's in it. What did they do? What happened and how did it resolve? And you got a story. It's easy to do that with children. Adults are a little resistant.
Sure.
But that's always what I try to end these kind of conversations with. Everybody's a storyteller. Ask a kid what happened at school today. If they're not old enough to tell you the same thing because they're teenagers and don't want to talk, but they've got a long story about what happened today at school.
Absolutely.
Everybody. And what I find is as people get older, they're always telling you stories about their life. They're reminiscing about it. And it's the reminiscence that enables their brain to stay connected for the parts. So the neuroplasticity allows them to remember names and other kinds of things. I've gotten better in my memory as I've written these stories.
Sarah Bracey White is the author of Primary Lessons, a memoir, and her latest book, A Walk Down Memory Lane, Short Stories for Seniors to Spark Joy and Stay Sharp, will be available in December 2025. Sarah, thank you so much for making the time to do this. It is so good to see your face, and this has been such a joy and such a gift. I so appreciate the conversation with you today.
Oh, you're very welcome, and thank you for the opportunity to spread the news.
That's going to just about wrap it up for this episode of Don't Encourage This. My thanks again to author Sarah Bracey White for joining us on the program. If you'd like to learn more about her work, again, you can check out her website at www.onmymind.org. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this one, you can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Player FM, wherever you get your podcast audio out of your personal favorite device of choice, just like you're doing right now. And of course, don't forget you can listen to the audio on YouTube. This program originates from Oxford, Ohio. You can get in touch with the podcast at www.don'tencouragethispodcast.com or simply drop a line at don'tencouragethis@gmail.com. If you want to find my dumb selfies or pictures of me bumming around at the church, you can find me on Blue Sky or the Instagram. Marcel Von Bullock from Oxford, Ohio. I am Mark Von Bullock. Thanks again, y'all.